My husband's white moonlight and I were kidnapped simultaneously. When the kidnappers demanded that my husband choose one of us, I unhesitatingly informed him that his white moonlight was not pregnant at all, and even her cancer was fabricated. In a rage, my husband chose me. As a result, that night, his white moonlight was tortured until her lower body rotted, leading to her death. Upon hearing the news of her demise, my husband did not even lift his head and tossed out the words, "She deserved it." Later, after 3 years of IVF treatments, I finally became pregnant with great difficulty and endured until the due date. My husband burst into the delivery room, wielding a hammer to smash my lower body. He dragged out the blood-soaked baby, ignoring my cries, and used the hammer to crush the baby's last breath. The suffering Sylvia endured, you should experience it all too. My husband glared at me viciously. If it weren't for avenging Sylvia, do you think you're worthy of bearing my child? In despair, I swallowed my last breath, and when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the kidnapping. Nathan. Who are you going to choose? The blade sliced across my throat, spilling blood. The stinging pain jolted me awake, and I saw Nathan's hesitant expression across from me. A surge of overwhelming hatred and anguish welled up in my chest. I forcibly suppressed my emotions, but before I could speak, I heard Sylvia sobbing beside me. Nathan, I'm so scared. Save me. My stomach hurts so much. In my previous life, Sylvia had also cried and begged Nathan to save her. However, my immense desire to survive compelled me to unhesitatingly expose Sylvia's fabricated pregnancy and cancer scam, all to make Nathan see what kind of person his white moonlight truly was. It was precisely because I revealed Sylvia's secrets that Nathan, in a fit of anger, chose to save me and abandon Sylvia, leading to her tragic death that day. Now, as Nathan looked at me with guilt, I did not beg him to save me. Instead, I silently smiled at him, tacitly accepting his choice. He painfully averted his eyes and then pointed at Sylvia. I choose Sylvia. Nathan dared not look at me. Evelyn, wait for me to settle Sylvia, and then I'll come save you. I did not respond, merely gazing at him indifferently as he ordered the kidnappers, release Sylvia. The kidnapper sneered, rumors say the head of the Meng family deeply loves his wife, but it seems that's not the case. Shut up. Nathan interrupted sharply, but Sylvia had already been pushed out by the kidnappers. He instinctively rushed forward to hold her, yet his gaze fell on me, as if he wanted to say something. In his arms, Sylvia clutched her stomach and cried. Nathan. I'm so scared. My stomach hurts so much. Sylvia wept pitifully, resembling a fragile cat. Nathan could no longer attend to me, he carried Sylvia and left the scene immediately. In this desperate situation, I glanced at the kidnappers and the nearby cliff, and seizing the moment when the kidnappers were distracted, I unhesitatingly jumped off the cliff. Not for any other reason, but because I had learned in advance that the base of the cliff was surrounded by a large number of police officers, and an inflatable cushion had been prepared by the police beforehand. In my previous life, if Sylvia hadn't arrogantly seduced the kidnappers, engaged in intercourse with them while criticizing their performance and mocking them, the kidnappers would never have considered killing anyone. This was the full truth I learned from the case files. However, Nathan refused to listen, remaining immersed in his own hatred, and I could not pull him back. Now, with the mountain wind howling, I staked everything on leaping off the cliff, landing on the inflatable cushion. A sense of panic from surviving a catastrophe washed over me. Before completely losing consciousness, I dialed my teacher's phone. Teacher, regarding the matter you mentioned last time about dedicating myself to the laboratory, I agree. When I awoke again, I was already in the hospital. And 4 drip was attached to the back of my hand. Nathan, sitting at the bedside, sighed in relief upon seeing me wake. Evelyn, did you consider the consequences of jumping off the cliff? His tone carried resentment. If something had happened to you, have you thought about what I would do? Looking at Nathan, I opened my mouth, but my throat felt as if rolled over by a blunt knife, so painful that I could not make a sound. The ward door was pushed open, and Sylvia approached me with surprise. Sister Evelyn, you're awake. Tears hung at the corners of Sylvia's eyes as she happily grasped my hand. When I heard you jumped off the cliff, my heart nearly stopped from fright. I almost lost the child, but fortunately, you're fine, Sylvia said in a aggrieved tone. If something happened to you, I would feel guilty for life. How could I face you and Nathan in the future? Sylvia's face showed genuine concern for me, which stirred a wave of discomfort in my stomach. I forcefully withdrew my hand, but Sylvia's eyes reddened. You still blame me, don't you? I knew you blamed me. Sylvia looked at Nathan aggrievedly. Maybe I should just leave. My presence between you and Sister Evelyn always makes her unhappy. It's all my fault. I'll leave today. Seeing Sylvia about to leave, Nathan's earlier guilt vanished completely. He grasped Sylvia's wrist and turned to me. Sylvia had nightmares all night because of your cliff jump, fearing you wouldn't wake up. Can't you stop being so selfish? You can't even tolerate a pregnant woman, knowing that Sylvia has limited time left. Nathan looked at me with a cold expression. Your cliff jump, in the end, was your own reckless and willful act. Sylvia shouldn't have to pay for your willfulness. The pain in my throat made me furrow my brows. In the past, upon hearing Nathan defend Sylvia, I would have immediately argued fiercely with him, then engaged in a cold war for days or nights, waiting for him to coax me. If he didn't, I would certainly lower myself to beg him. But now it was different. I forcefully strained my vocal cords to squeeze out a hoarse sentence. I didn't ask her to leave. I looked at Sylvia. The Meng family is your home, stay as long as you want. Seeing my sensibility, Nathan's expression softened slightly, but Sylvia glared at me viciously where Nathan couldn't see. I indifferently tugged at my lip and heard Nathan say again, because Sylvia is pregnant and you've both experienced the kidnapping, I really don't feel at ease with her living alone. So, I've asked Denise to pack Sylvia's things, and she'll move in with us later. What do you think? His inquiring tone carried a cold, firm certainty, leaving me no room for refusal. Sister Evelyn, if you're unhappy. I think it's great. My straightforward agreement left Sylvia unable to exploit the situation, and even Nathan rarely showed a relaxed expression as he patted my head, instructed me to rest well, and so on. He added that it was inconvenient for a pregnant woman to stay in the hospital too long, so he took Sylvia and left. I stayed in the hospital for half a month, seeing Nathan only once. He either said he was busy or that he was accompanying Sylvia to pick out daily necessities. In truth, I didn't want to know what he was doing, nor did I desire his company at the hospital. But Sylvia always called to inform me of every detail, deliberately acting troubled. I didn't want this, Sister Evelyn, but Nathan insists on doing everything personally. You won't be angry, will you, Sister Evelyn? Sylvia's provocations felt like punches landing on cotton. In the past, if Sylvia got even slightly close to Nathan, I would be ignited with anger. Now, I merely smiled and said, how could I be? I'm glad Nathan can take good care of you. Sylvia suffered in silence until the day I returned to the Meng family, when she fully erupted. The master bedroom I had yielded became Sylvia's room. The original color scheme had been entirely changed to girlish pink. I didn't mind, but Sylvia followed behind me and said, Nathan thinks pink wallpaper is better, more suited to my temperament. He always feels I'm like a child who hasn't grown up and needs care. And the slippers, Nathan picked them too, Sylvia feigned surprise. Oh. Sister Evelyn, Nathan and I are wearing couple slippers. You won't be angry, will you? I really didn't mean it. My gaze fell on Sylvia's cartoon bunny slippers, reminding me of how I once asked Nathan to wear couple slippers with me. Nathan had merely said I was too childish and told me to mature and not follow every trend. It turned out Nathan wasn't incapable of loving, he just didn't want to unconditionally pamper me. No, I looked at Sylvia's provocative gaze and responded indifferently, I think they suit you well. Sylvia then picked up a photo from the table, because I wanted to take maternity photos in advance, but the child has no father. Nathan accompanied me to take them during the days you were hospitalized. Coincidentally, Nathan returned and, hearing this, explained unnaturally, I just agreed to be the child's godfather. Once the child is born, you'll be the godmother. Haven't you always liked children? You can help take care of it then, okay? I couldn't help but recall my own child, who had shared breaths with me in my body for a full 9.5 months, only to be cruelly smashed to death by Nathan with a hammer. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, devoid of any paternal mercy, yet now it was displayed vividly. My heart ached faintly, but I suppressed my emotions and nodded. Okay. Nathan's tense nerves finally relaxed, but he inexplicably glanced at me a couple more times. Seeing nothing amiss, he fully set his mind at ease. Until Sylvia suddenly picked up a pocket watch. Sister Evelyn, I thought this looked nice, so I had someone remake it into a baby photo frame. What do you think? My gaze followed the object in Sylvia's hand, and my breath suddenly caught. That pocket watch was my father's relic, which I had always treasured in a safe. No one except Nathan knew the password. It was impossible for anyone else to take it out, let alone modify my father's relic. It certainly wouldn't have turned into the pink, toy-like thing in Sylvia's hand. Nathan. Knowing full well the profound significance of the pocket watch to me, my chest felt as if a piece had been brutally gouged out, and even the air stagnated. I pointed at the pocket watch and looked at Nathan. Did you give her my father's relic? Having lost face because of me, Nathan frowned unhappily. It's just a worthless thing. If I gave it, I gave it. Who are you making that face for? Furthermore, Nathan looked at me coldly. The dead are like extinguished lamps, of course, the living are more important. I thought you had become sensible, but you're still the same as before, always jealous and competing for attention. There is no greater sorrow than a dead heart. Looking at Nathan's barbaric and cold attitude, I understood that no matter what I said, I couldn't change the established facts, even if he knew what that pocket watch meant to me. Since that was the case, there was no need for me to continue playing the villain. I nodded silently, looked at the pocket watch, and nodded. You're right, if Sylvia likes it, then give it to her. Then, under Nathan's stunned expression, I retrieved my documents from the drawer, glanced back at Nathan, and left without looking back. Nathan watched my back, a surge of anxiety rising in his heart. He was about to call me, but was interrupted by Sylvia clutching her stomach and crying in pain. Nathan, did I make Sister Evelyn unhappy? Nathan distressedly picked up Sylvia and left, tossing a sentence as he passed me. Evelyn, there's a limit to throwing tantrums. His expression was hurried, reminiscent of the year we first got together when I had gastric spasms so painful I couldn't straighten up. He had held me like that to the hospital, staying by my side inseparably. However, we could never return to the past. I organized my documents, drafted the divorce agreement, and received a call from the company. Secretary Michael told me, Sister Evelyn, Sylvia's secretary threw out all your things from your workstation and said you won't be coming to the company anymore. What's going on? Everyone here stands with you. We've already told Nathan that if you really resign, we'll all follow you. Nathan and I founded the company together. He was always the nominal boss, while I was the assistant behind him. No one knew about our hidden marriage, let alone that I had decided to divorce. But hearing Michael and my colleagues stand up for me warmed my heart. I told Michael, I'm not planning to continue, but you don't need to be impulsive. I have my reasons, you don't have to consider me. The company benefits are good. No need to lose your jobs because of me. Just as I finished speaking, the door was pushed open, and Nathan, with a dark face, questioned me, You're not planning to continue? Looking at Nathan, I hung up the phone and had no intention of responding. Evelyn. How long are you going to make a fuss? Nathan grabbed my wrist, forcing me to answer. Sylvia is pregnant now and has late-stage cancer. The doctor said she needs more sun exposure, and your office has the best sunlight, so I let her stay there during the day. She doesn't affect you. Listening to Nathan's self-righteous tone, I glanced at Sylvia hiding behind him, raising her eyebrows at me, and suddenly found it quite laughable. The company is so large, why must she sunbathe in my office? I took out the divorce agreement and placed it on the table. Sign it, Nathan. Looking at the document on the table, Nathan's already irritated emotions reached their peak. You're using divorce to threaten me? Evelyn, who gave you the audacity to threaten me with this? Nathan's eyes surged with anger as he snatched the pen from my hand, signed his name, and threw the agreement and pen at my face. Since you want a divorce. Fine. Get out now. Nathan was convinced I would soften and used such low-end and vile methods to force me to submit. But I merely glanced at him indifferently, picked up the agreement, walked out the villa door into the stormy courtyard, still hearing Sylvia's voice. Nathan, it's pouring outside, hurry and coax Sister Evelyn back. Ignore her. Nathan's cold, hard voice rang out. Let her die out there for all I care. Nathan thought I was just throwing a tantrum. But he didn't know that the car picking me up had already arrived outside the community. Nathan watched the rain outside growing heavier, with lightning and thunder, his anxiety intensifying. He kept checking the time, 10 hours had passed, and I hadn't come to seek reconciliation. Irritated, he called friends for a gathering, but they couldn't help speaking up for me. Nathan, aren't you really going too far? Evelyn is an orphan, you let her go out alone with nothing, this isn't cutting off her retreat and forcing her to death? Nathan recalled my expression when I left, and his heart suddenly ached. Before he could speak, Sylvia, sitting aside, interjected. But what did Nathan do wrong? It's Sister Evelyn who's too willful, you can't expect Nathan to coax her for everything. Previously, he found Sylvia fair and well-behaved, but now her words inexplicably felt uncomfortable. A friend close to me directly retorted, who are you to talk about Evelyn? To put it bluntly, Nathan's current social status is all thanks to Evelyn building it for him. During their hardest times, if I remember correctly, you were living it up with other men, right? Moreover, the friend took out the materials I had sent her before and slapped them on Nathan, only you would keep such trash. Didn't Evelyn tell you that when she came back saying her man died, and she was pregnant with cancer, it was all a scam? When Evelyn was hospitalized for a miscarriage, how did you act as her husband? On the day Sylvia returned, holding her prenatal report and late-stage cancer diagnosis, crying and begging for shelter, I had raised doubts and even demanded that Sylvia go to the hospital we co-founded for another checkup. But Sylvia reacted strongly, crying that I couldn't tolerate her and might as well let her die. At that time, Nathan only thought I was vicious, who would use pregnancy and cancer as a pretext to deceive. Now, looking at all the diagnoses on the checkup sheet and the video thrown by his friend, Sylvia was indeed not pregnant and had even hooked up with other men during their ambiguous phase. His gaze sharpened, looking at Sylvia as if he wanted to devour her. Sylvia's eyes reddened, and tears fell. It's not true, Nathan, Sylvia cried, I don't know where these came from, but I really didn't deceive you. How could I possibly lie about my pregnancy? Nathan, don't you believe me? Sylvia turned her head crying and questioned my friend, what benefits did Evelyn give you to make you speak for her and frame me like this? The friend merely admired Sylvia's green tea behavior and retorted coolly, whether it's true or not, just go to the hospital for a checkup and we'll know. Yes, Nathan's gaze fixed straight on Sylvia's abdomen, just one trip to the hospital, and the truth will be revealed. Sylvia shuddered under Nathan's gaze. She had never seen that look, as if he would really take her life for lying. She cried and knelt at Nathan's feet, hugging his legs, I won't go to the hospital. Nathan, I'm afraid of hospitals, I don't want to go. In the past, whenever Sylvia cried, Nathan would even pluck stars from the sky for her. Sylvia was his youthful white moonlight whom he loved but couldn't have. When she suddenly returned, living in extreme misery, he couldn't help but feel compassion and took her in. Now, seeing Sylvia's tears, Nathan only felt irritated and disordered. He coldly pushed away Sylvia's hand and dialed his secretary. Arrange a full-body checkup for Miss Sylvia. Nathan hoped more than anyone that Sylvia was truly ill and genuinely pregnant, nurturing a child with her life. Otherwise, he dared not imagine how I had endured these days. He recalled the day of the kidnapping when I smiled at him, the hospitalization when I responded indifferently to his every word, the day my father's pocket watch was taken by Sylvia as a toy to show off, my disappointment and collapse, and the resoluteness when I left with the divorce agreement. It can't be. Nathan irritably grabbed his hair. It can't be. He sat in the hospital corridor with his friends, waiting for the final results. The doctor was his person and dared not conceal anything, handing the results to him immediately upon receipt. Mr. Nathan, Miss Sylvia is in good health, but due to excessive abortions, she is now infertile. His friend couldn't help mocking, Nathan, oh Nathan. You hurt the one who loves you most, Evelyn, for such a green tea. You gained a sesame seed but lost a watermelon, you deserve it. The lightweight checkup sheet felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Nathan stared blankly at the diagnosis results, numbly asking the doctor, could there be an error? The doctor answered seriously, impossible. We conducted dozens of tests, all yielding the same result, no error is possible. Give it up, Nathan, his friend snatched the checkup sheet, only you would mistake a lump of wood for a pearl, hilarious. Now you've got your retribution, and good riddance. You're not worthy of Evelyn, you match Sylvia perfectly. Nathan's heart sank completely. He rushed straight to the ward, saw Sylvia sitting on the bed, and directly grabbed her collar to question her. Who gave you the audacity to play me like this? Do you even know that because of you, Evelyn still refuses to come back? Sylvia was startled. Looking at Nathan's expression, her eyes reddened. Nathan, didn't you say that no matter what I become, as long as I turn back, you'll be there? The facts prove you love me more. No matter what I wanted from Evelyn, you unconditionally demanded she give it to me, her home, her room, her man, and everything of hers. Sylvia took out the pocket watch, even Evelyn's father's relic, you gave it to me to make me happy. Isn't that enough to show you love me? Seeing the yellowed pocket watch turned into a pink, cute toy, Nathan felt a dull pain in his chest. Recalling my desperate and numb expression at the time, he felt as if his heart was gripped by a large hand, even breathing hurt. He snatched the pocket watch. What right do you have to take Evelyn's things? You bitch. Nathan held the pocket watch like a treasure, forcefully trying to wipe off the pink color, but no matter how he tried, it wouldn't come off. He wiped frantically until his hands bled, unaware of it. Sylvia mocked from the side. Nathan, who are you pretending to be affectionate for now? Weren't you the one who personally drove Evelyn away? What affectionate scene are you acting now? Sylvia looked at Nathan like this and sneered, in the end, you and Evelyn reaching this point is all because of your own doing. Nathan's action stopped, and his expression towards Sylvia became terrifying. In the 3rd year at the laboratory, carrying the experimental injections I brought at the time, the agents injected into my body underwent a qualitative change. The memories altered according to the code truly changed completely. For this, the entire experimental team celebrated excitedly in jubilation. Our experiment targeting Alzheimer's disease and the aging population was fully approved, patented, and successfully promoted to every corner of countries worldwide. Those elderly tormented by memory degeneration no longer needed to worry about becoming a burden. Memories could now be reversed. Henceforth, Alzheimer's disease would no longer exist in medical history. As the core of the team, my teacher presented an invitation letter. Beijing University wants our team to send one person for a lecture. We unanimously agreed that you are the most suitable. We wanted to ask your opinion. Having left Beijing for 3 years, I never recalled those painful memories from my previous life. Time took away the harm Nathan inflicted on me, and coincidentally, it allowed me to achieve myself through the pain. I smiled and nodded in agreement. Then, I boarded the return flight. After 3 years away, Beijing hadn't changed much. I checked into the hotel booked by my teacher and arrived at Beijing Normal University's lecture hall with my assistant. It was already packed, and seeing these diligent students, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. Once, my father worked day and night in the laboratory to cure my mother's Alzheimer's, but due to an accident, my mother left us forever. Later, my father left his data and, in grief, committed suicide, leaving only a pocket watch and a pile of cryptic texts. Now, I could be considered to have inherited my father's mantle and fulfilled his last wish. I prepared a series of lecture drafts and was following my assistant to prepare for the stage when suddenly someone called my name. Evelyn? My steps halted, and turning my head, I saw Nathan in the entrepreneurs section. He looked at my now glamorous self in disbelief, a flash of pain in his eyes, then walked from the entrepreneur's position to me. "Evelyn, it's really you." Nathan grabbed my wrist. "I've searched for you for 3 whole years, you vanished without a trace. Do you know how heartbroken I was? How could you just leave without regard for me?" "Evelyn," Nathan's eyes were red-rimmed, his gaze toward me nearly obsessive, "I'm taking you home now." My grabbed wrist ached, and I furrowed my brow slightly. "Sir, please let go." My indifferent response stung Nathan. He looked at me in disbelief. "What did you call me?" "Evelyn, I know I was wrong. I know it was all Sylvia's doing." As if to claim credit or atone, Nathan eagerly told me, "I've dealt with Sylvia, she won't come between us anymore." "Evelyn, forgive me." In the laboratory, when my teachers first learned of my divorce, they expressed regret. But once, during a gathering where we drank, I got drunk and poured out my heart, revealing the whole story. The entire lab's senior brothers and sisters despised Nathan to the extreme, including the junior assistant I had personally promoted. The junior assistant, seeing Nathan's attitude toward me, reacted and forcefully pushed him away, looking at him coldly. "Mr. Nathan, if you continue to interfere with Teacher Evelyn's lecture preparation, I'll call the police to arrest you." The junior assistant was my teacher's only son. He had been a favored child since young, yet he was willing to call me teacher for learning's sake. I genuinely liked this junior brother from the bottom of my heart. I smiled and shook my head, wanting to tell him it was fine. But Nathan, not knowing what got into him, pointed at the junior assistant and questioned. "Who is he?" "Evelyn. Give me an explanation." "You left home for 3 years for this man?" "Fine," Nathan suddenly grinned ferociously. "I thought I broke your heart and you left in anger, but it turns out you had already found a replacement." I couldn't understand. The person who drove me out of the house back then, indulged Sylvia in occupying my house, my man, and my father's pocket watch. How did he have the face to blame me in public? Seeing more onlookers gathering, the junior assistant's face darkened, about to clash with Nathan. But I backhanded a slap across Nathan's face. With a smack, I looked at Nathan. "If you're sick, go to the hospital, not come here to act crazy." Then, I raised my hand and slapped again. 3 years ago, we were already divorced, Mr. Nathan, I reminded him, there is no relationship between us. Nathan covered his face, looking at me heartbroken. Moreover, I smiled and reminded, 3 years ago, Sylvia deliberately flaunted her wealth, inciting hatred from villains, which led to that kidnapping case. I don't believe you don't know the truth. Nathan recalled the kidnapping and guiltily lowered his head. I continued to press closer. But you still chose the white moonlight who faked pregnancy, complacently watching me fall into life-threatening danger, while I sneered, jumped off the cliff to survive. The internet has no forgetfulness. Shall I find it for you to see? Nathan abruptly retreated half a step. Back then, that kidnapping case even trended on hot searches. The kidnappers used the slogan of robbing the rich to help the poor, and the live stream had millions of viewers. Now, upon my mention, many recalled the incident and suddenly realized. I heard the kidnapped were the main corporation president's wife and his white moonlight. Nathan chose to save the white moonlight, but Mrs. Nathan jumped off the cliff to escape. If not for the police arriving, she probably would have died long ago. My God. So that incident back then was real. I thought it was a script. That main corporation is actually Nathan's main corporation. He's so scummy himself, doesn't he have any self-awareness? And he has the nerve to condemn Teacher Evelyn here? If not for Teacher Evelyn, how many people would still be troubled by the unsolved mystery of Alzheimer's? Fortunately, Teacher Evelyn survived. Otherwise, Nathan would have killed a national pillar. Nathan was insulted, pointed at and scolded until his face flushed red. With a livid face, he looked at me. Even if that's the case, who hasn't made mistakes in youth? Evelyn, do you have to keep dredging up old accounts? Even now, Nathan still didn't think he had done wrong. Even if he did, it was a forgivable, insignificant matter. I smiled at Nathan, showing no mercy. Old accounts? You drove me out of the house for Sylvia, let her use my father's relic as a toy, even redecorated my room entirely in Sylvia's preferred style. When Sylvia wasn't looking at you, you chose me. After being with me, you still lusted after Sylvia. You call this dredging up old accounts? Nathan, you're a thorough selfish bastard. Then, I turned to the Beijing school leader aside. If the entrepreneurs your school invites for exchange have such indiscreet private lives, I cannot guarantee that our 3 years of hard work achievements won't be wasted. Seeing that I was unwilling to even discuss the lecture further, not only the school leaders but also other entrepreneurs came out in support. Beijing does not welcome you. 10 main corporations can't compare to one teacher, Evelyn. I always said main corporation rose too fast and stabilized in Beijing, but why has it declined so much these years? Turns out it's because teacher Evelyn was driven away by certain people. Certain people have such thick skin, still blaming teacher Evelyn here. In the year Nathan and I first got together, apart from his passion, he had nothing. It was I who, relying on the connections and relationships left by my father, paved the first step in Beijing, then secured funding sponsorship with my solid skills, and later accompanied Nathan to go public. I invested almost all my glory in Nathan. I didn't ask for his gratitude, I only asked him to love me as before. When I needed family the most, during the most painful days, it was Nathan who accompanied me through. On the day my father committed suicide, it was Nathan who held the broken me, repeating over and over, Evelyn, your father went to enjoy blessings, while reuniting with your mother, they sent me to love you. Nathan swore in front of my father's body, if I, Nathan, ever betray Evelyn, may I die a horrible death. Evelyn, I don't seek to be born together, but I want to be like your uncle. If one day you're gone, I certainly won't live alone. On my parents. I saw too much purity and love from my parents, such that my longing for love and home surpassed everything. I unhesitatingly chose to pave the way for Nathan, personally sending him to the high platform, watching him stand at the mountaintop, and was willing to always be the force supporting him. If not for Sylvia, I never thought our relationship was so fragile. Nathan rejected countless women, yet he alone couldn't reject his youthful white moonlight. I had pained, cried, argued, even used divorce as a threat, and held him to his promises, but he wouldn't listen to a word, only treating my breakdown as madness, regarding me as an emotionally triggered lunatic. Even when he saw my severe psychological disorder diagnosis, he casually tossed out, Evelyn, your appearance using such lowly means to retain me is truly disgusting. Now, it's merely everyone returning to their place. What doesn't belong to Nathan ultimately doesn't. Watching Nathan being escorted out by security, still shouting my name, my heart was extremely calm, without ripples. I quickly turned the page on this interlude, smoothly completed the lecture with my script, and was invited to lectures by various institutions. During this time, I took a moment to visit my parents' graves. Seeing the smile still on my father's face, I smiled and placed the flowers. Dad, I don't know if you'll understand, but many times, I feel that heaven giving me a chance to start over was fought for by you and Mom. I won't be foolish anymore. Life is only once, I just want to live for myself. I placed the flowers. Exiting the cemetery, the sky had darkened. The junior assistant waited outside, thoughtfully holding an umbrella for me, covering most of me, with the pitter-patter of rain in my ears. Teacher Evelyn, teacher called to have us return next week. I nodded and said okay. Before getting into the car, the door was suddenly grabbed. Turning back instantly, I saw a woman with indistinguishable features, dressed in rags. Her eyes were particularly familiar as she grabbed my car door and sneered. It's really you. Evelyn. You dare come back. Sylvia. I quickly realized. Sylvia had already taken out a prepared dagger from her bosom and stabbed viciously at me, but before she could touch me, the junior assistant kicked her away, sending her tumbling into the mud. Teacher Evelyn, the junior assistant asked worriedly, are you all right? I shook my head, looking at Sylvia. After 3 years without seeing her, I never imagined meeting in such a scene. She was disfigured and appeared to be faring poorly. As if discerning my scrutiny, Sylvia coldly shouted, "Evelyn, it's all your fault. If not for you, Nathan wouldn't have exterminated me. He wouldn't have made me a plaything for so many people, just to get me pregnant and then personally abort it, to compensate for the harm to you. Nor would he have ruined my face with a knife during my miscarriage. It's you. You made my latter half of life neither human nor ghost. I'll kill you." Looking at the crazed Sylvia, I felt no pity in my heart. For Sylvia, I never thought she deserved sympathy, all her outcomes were deserved. Even now, disfigured and turned beggar, in my view, it was what she deserved. However, I didn't expect Sylvia to blame all the faults on me. "Sylvia," I sneered, using the most infuriating tone, "you deserve it." Looking at Sylvia's twisted face, facing the figure hurrying from behind her, I laughed even louder. "You just deserve it, all your endings are self-inflicted. Even if you die here today, I won't spare you another glance." Listening to my mockery, Sylvia completely broke down, picked up the dagger from the ground, and shouted, "Evelyn, I'll kill you." Then, her steps halted, her eyes widened in disbelief, she stiffly turned her head, meeting Nathan's murderous action. "Didn't I tell you to stay away from Evelyn? Otherwise, I won't let you off." Nathan stabbed a knife into Sylvia's back, ruthlessly withdrew it, and stabbed again, blood splattering. Nathan smiled cruelly. "It's you who made Evelyn disappointed in me. Only by solving you from the root can Evelyn forgive me. Sylvia, go die." I watched Nathan's cruel violence, saw Sylvia fall straight to the ground, splashing blood everywhere, rainwater pouring on her. She didn't close her eyes even in death. When Nathan, holding the murder weapon, looked at me, his eyes held more complex emotions. He approached me. The junior assistant hurriedly blocked in front of me, but he suddenly stood still, raised his hands, and said to me, "Evelyn, I know you've come back anew too. In the previous life, I wronged you." Nathan threw away the weapon, his eyes indistinguishable between tears or rainwater. "I've remembered everything, how I hurt you, how you cried and begged me to spare the child. It's all my fault. Evelyn, I no longer dare to hope for your forgiveness, I only beg you not to hate me. Don't hate me, Evelyn." Later, Nathan was arrested for intentional homicide. On the execution day, Nathan wrote me a letter. When the letter was delivered to me, I was focused on an experiment. The junior assistant asked, "Teacher Evelyn, won't you look at it?" Looking at the unopened letter, I unhesitatingly threw it into the fire. "It's just filthy stuff, why dirty my eyes with it?"